All right, that's recording. Quick word from the sponsors. FIFO by Aaron Weston, a hilarious novel about all the crazy stuff that happens up when you're doing FIFO. Available at Aaron Weston author, Instagram account or Facebook page. Your Australian Defence Force machines. This is for the kids. Australian firefighters. Australian police vehicles. Mining machines colouring in book. Australian paramedics. Australian surf lifesavers. Australian mining machines. All available on Facebook under Children's Books by Aaron White. Just click on the Shop Now button and grab one. All right, we'll get started. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Aaron White Show. Today, we have a fantastic guest, Matty Morris. Matty is a Army vet. I've got to double check that. And the host of the Zero Limits podcast. Welcome to the show, Matty.
Thanks, mate. Appreciate you having me on.
I know you're a veteran from the Defence Force. Is the Army? I was guessing that.
Yeah, mate. I was a paratrooper down in Sydney.
Oh, sweet. Oh, we
Yeah,
used to have
mate.
some good stories then. Hey,
Yeah.
you go. Oh, I'll just dive into the first question, then just let you go hard. Hey, Kim, can you please tell me your story, like how and where you grew up and your life-changing events and how you ended up doing what you're doing today?
Yeah, mate. Too easy. All right. We'll get back to the start, back to young Matty Morris. Mate, I grew up in Brisbane, Queensland. Born 1984. Went to schooling all throughout Brisbane. Obviously primary school throughout to high school. So in my younger days, we grew up right next to the Wollongabba, the Gabba cricket ground. So obviously it's been throughout the news at the moment because they're trying to expand it, spend $1 billion to build it up, etc. So my primary school was right next to it. And awesome place to grow up. Absolutely awesome place. Obviously we had, with our, one of the good things about being right next to the Gabba was, being the cricket and the AFL. Our AFL coach was Justin Lepage. Our cricket coach was Michael Slater. So, we turn up to schools with all these interesting coaches. All these schools were like, who are these guys? They got, actual players that are their coaches. So that worked out really well. And I grew up in a 2-bedroom housing commission house with mum and 3 brothers. So it was quite cramped. Mum moved from Singapore early 70s and settled in Australia, and then obviously had us. And it was we had a bit of a tough growing up. We didn't have too much money, etc., and always had hand-me-downs. And typical young family back in the 80s. It was a tough time for everyone. So throughout primary school, I moved on to high school, and I never really enjoyed high school. Never really on the academic side. I was a sports kid and the class clown, so I'd always be getting in trouble with the police on the outside of school, etc., and stealing cars and doing all the bad stuff kids were doing, back in those young days. Come year 11, year 12, obviously that was 2001 was 2001. Yeah, 2001. Sorry, was 9/11, which was a significant point in my life where yourself looking back, you would have seen it all over the news, and it was a surreal moment. Nothing like that in the world. Similar stuff have happened in the world, but not to the extent where it was all over the media, all over the news. So at that point, was the military here in Australia were starting to put out the ads on TV. You could always hear commercials on the radio. 13, 1901. Join the army, etc. So I bit the bullet and applied in 2003, started 2003, and joined up. So from there, so basically 2003, I joined up, and at that stage they weren't taking any full-time soldiers due to the fact that the schools, essentially the schools that we had to go to for army training were overloaded. Obviously post 9/11, everyone wanted to join. Everyone wanted to get overseas and do their part. So the training recruitment side of things were too full to allow in full-time soldiers. So I ended up becoming a part-time soldier for about a year. And I was lucky enough within that time to get posted to Brisbane, Nogra Barracks, to an infantry reserve battalion. And at that stage, I was lucky enough to get onto full-time service. So even though I was a part-time soldier, they gave me full-time services, which was, a really good thing for me because it's essentially what I wanted. From there, I was lucky enough to get overseas. We went to Singapore to do some training with the reservists, which was awesome. Sorry, mate.
That's all right.
Business calls.
Yeah. The hustle never stops.
Yeah, mate. 2 phones. It's not good. Not good. Yeah, mate. So I did Singapore. We went over there, did a bit of training exercise, and then actually got my first deployment with the army. You know, first live deployment. So wearing body armor, carrying a pistol, carrying a rifle, etc. So I went up to North Queensland, or the more the Northern Australian waters, and did a bit of border patrol. As you know, back then it was with John Howard, the children overboard type stuff. So that's what we were doing. We were, intercepting illegal fishing boats, illegal immigrant boats, etc. So that was my first actual deployment. And it turned out on that deployment, my section commander, she was linked to what they call it is SCHEMA, which is basically the administration center for the army. So at that stage, I put in my application to go full-time army. And again, she was in the right spot. So she put it on the right desk, and within a couple of months, mate, I'm straight down to Singleton, exactly where I am now. I'm just located in Newcastle, actually. It's where I'm based out of. And so I spent, 10 plus weeks in Singleton. And then basically at Singleton, you kind of get a preference on where you want to get posted. Basically there's 9 battalions here in Australia, roughly 500 guys per battalion. And basically my section commander at that stage, he's like, who wants to earn an extra $100 a fortnight? So there's probably about 6 or 7 of us. We put our hands up, and he's like, all right, guys, you guys are paratroopers. I'm like, what do you mean? So, obviously I had a few thoughts run through my head, watched a few videos in my time, German paratroopers jumping out of planes and American paratroopers jumping in. All right, here we go, down to Sydney. So I ended up getting posted down to Sydney and, starting my full-time military career. From there, I did my parachute course, got my para wings, which is, quite a large achievement for an infantry guy to get their para wings to wear on their shoulder, and do exercises where you can jump in as a paratrooper. I got into a pretty bad accident early 2006. Had a bad parachute crash and busted my shoulder. So I was out for the whole year 2006 just with an injury. And so post-injury, I mend up, get all the operations done, physio, etc. Well, one good thing about the army is obviously the medical, dental, etc. It's all covered, and you get some of the best care whilst you're in the army. So post-injury, 2007, I get my first deployment to Timor. At that stage, Timor was going through presidential elections and a lot of guerrilla warfare at the end of the day. It was more of a peacekeeping operation. We're heading in. Obviously, during the presidential elections, there was a lot of riots. They're burning tires on the streets and just destroying stuff, essentially. And, we were sent there, as a peacekeeping force with the Australian Federal Police and, to stabilise the country, which ended up happening. We got control of the country and maintain it with, there was, a whole bunch of other forces out there as well. So I got back from East Timor, and at that time we got the word, obviously Afghanistan was kicking off. Afghanistan's kicked off in, early 2000s. And at that stage was only special forces that were heading over and doing their thing and, little reconnaissance roles, etc. So, we got the word that Afghanistan was kicking off, and we're on parade one day. And, obviously within a company, or I should say within a battalion of an infantry battalion, you've got, 3 to 4 different companies. And inside those companies, you've got multiple different platoons as well. So obviously that stage, our company was selected to go to Afghanistan, and we deployed 2008, April 2008 to Afghanistan. So that was my first. I was kind of lucky to have Timor up my sleeve, so I kind of knew what it was like to carry guns and grenades, etc., and all that type of stuff. But Afghanistan, mate, and you would have seen it all throughout the news. It's a different ball game. Dealing with the Taliban, fighting the war on terror, essentially. So I deployed Afghanistan 2008 and did a 7-month deployment, I think. And, that was an eye opener, that deployment. That, at the end of the day, I was only quite young too. So I was only 24, had my 25th birthday in Afghanistan. So, most 24-year-olds are out nightclubbing on the weekends and, enjoying their life and surfing every weekend, etc. And here's me and with a bunch of other young kids. And I think the youngest guy we had was only 18. So, he was fresh out of school and straight into a war zone, which was quite a big step for young guys like myself. So, left 2008. We got back to Australia in November 07. Pretty crazy deployment, obviously. Lost a few guys, not connected with us, but special forces, etc. So we spent a lot of time, dealing with grief and loss, etc., which is never a good thing for a young person. And then, I guess it was at that stage as well where I was deciding what I was going to do with my life post army. So I discharged 2009 and got straight into the private security side of things. I moved to Newcastle and started to kick off the security side of things. I started bouncing on nightclub doors. I actually started off doing it down in Sydney while I was in the army. But officially I took over doing, security in 2009. So 2009 started bouncing on the doors up until probably about 2011. I was, on the doors Monday through to Sunday on, different nightclubs throughout Newcastle. And from there, I got the offer to start getting into a bit of close personal protection, which, most people would call it bodyguard work. So I started doing a lot of security for, bodyguard stuff for, celebrities and executives. In saying that, when you start doing bodyguard or, celebrity, you kind of start doing the shittier jobs first. So I was a driver, I was carrying the luggage, I was, the umbrella guy, I was the guy on the outside, just trying to build my way up to get to, that close protection operator, the bodyguard itself. So, a couple of years come past and then I get the opportunity to start stepping up and start taking clients out by them, by myself, etc. And, doing big jobs. So looking at, the client lists, I've worked with Nicole Kidman, Keith Urban, Taylor Lautner. I was on the domestic team for Taylor Swift. Worked with Nick Jonas and Jonas Brothers. Mate, the list goes on. There's a whole bunch. And executives, same things, mate. There's multiple billionaires and millionaires, very important people, as they call themselves, looking after those guys as well. So there's a big extensive list. So at that stage, I was starting to get the itch again to get back overseas to, like a hostile environment. And I had the opportunity. Iraq popped up, Baghdad, and put my name down for it. Put my resume in, and get the email. You've got the job. So I ended up heading into Baghdad to do private security for the Australian Embassy. And at that stage, I think it still is now, is the Australian and New Zealand Embassy. So I got over to Baghdad 2016-ish, early 2016, and started my what they call is a PSD career. So it's a private security detachment or detail contractor, essentially just providing security services for government officials, diplomats, more specifically the Australian ambassador or New Zealand ambassadors. So we'd be cruising out throughout Baghdad, a couple of guys, AK-47s and, machine guns and all that type of stuff, just cruising through the streets and taking, these clients to whatever meetings they got to go, any meeting they got to go to throughout Baghdad. So that was another eye opener. My first time in Iraq, still a fairly hostile country as well. And it was always a lot of IEDs and indirect fire and all that type of stuff. It's one of those places that I'll never forget. And I was, during that whole time in Iraq as well, I was kind of lucky because we got to go to some cool places. We head up to Kurdistan, Erbil, Sulaymaniyah and all those, northern places up near Mosul. At that time, Mosul was the last stronghold for ISIS. You would have seen it all throughout the news. So we spent a bit of time up there, and I was lucky enough to go to the ancient city of Babylon down in the Jaff. So that's for essentially for a white person to be in one of those areas is, mate, it's one of those things I'll never forget is the Babylon. And it's funny because, you got the ancient city of Babylon, one of the first civilizations in this world. And then up the top of the hill, there's Saddam's palace. He's built a palace up the top, and I'm chipping marble off the walls to take home and stuff like that. So I've got all this stuff at home, which is great. Probably not allowed to, but I did it anyway. So I spent a couple of years in Baghdad. That was fly in, fly out. So I spent about 2 months in country, then spent a month back in Australia. At that stage, mate, the money was incredible. Obviously, you're putting your life on the line for the government, transporting these guys around. So, of course, the money has to be good for us to take those jobs. And then I got an offer to head to Kabul, Afghanistan, and, go back to Afghanistan, 10 years on from the first time. So it was kind of, yeah, mate, as soon as I got that email to go to Afghanistan, I'm like, yep, let's sign me up. I'm in. So I ended up going to Afghanistan, doing the exact same thing with the Australian embassy in Kabul, transporting the government diplomats, etc. And Afghanistan, again, mate, like comparing Afghanistan and Iraq, they're totally different countries. The polar opposites, mate. You got one country that essentially, Iraq, pre-evasion, pre-evasion was a first world country, mate. There's electricity, there's great food, gold everywhere, etc. So, and then whereas Afghanistan, it was, mate, it's undescribable. It's undescribable. They're still primitive. There's no technology. Some parts of Afghanistan living in mud huts still. And surviving off the food they can grow in the summer type thing. But where we were in Kabul it was semi-what built up, but it was quite filthy. The sanitary side of things it was crap all over the roads, etc. And yeah, mate, yeah. So I got to cruise out throughout Afghanistan again, and flying private jets with the ambassadors, and go to cool places, and carrying guns and all that type of stuff. And I enjoyed it. Yeah, in my time, it was good fun. But I guess doing jobs like that, you kind of have a shelf life, because it did start getting a little bit, over the whole time, it was dangerous. Like, mate, you can't describe it. Every day you go out on, unlike any job here in Australia, every day you go out, it could be your last, which kind of takes a toll, especially because myself, and I'm married with, young kids as well. So, you got to try and balance up the risk versus reward. So, mate, I decided to start a security company. And actually, I decided that when I was in Baghdad one night. I was sitting in a room with one of the boys, and we decided to start a security company. So it didn't really follow through with it until the end of my time in Afghanistan. I ended up getting a blood clot in my liver. So I was in Kabul and started getting these pains in my guts. Didn't know what it was, and at that stage, because the weird thing with us being contractors is that we're contracted to the government, but if something happens to us, the government don't give a shit. They basically just push us to the side. So I ended up going seeing a couple of these random little expat doctors in Kabul. We'd drive to a place, get a doctor to have a look at me. They couldn't figure it out. Went to another doctor, they couldn't figure it out. Eventually, the embassy's like, righto, let's send him to the military. So the military took me and at one of the role facilities they've got it there, the medical hospitals that they got, and mate, they couldn't figure it out either. They had no idea. So I spent about a week in hospital in Afghanistan on fentanyl, and mate, they'll give me every bit of painkiller they could possibly give me, because I was in the worst pain I've ever been in my life. Like, I don't wish it upon anyone. So eventually, mate, they medically evac'd me out of Afghanistan. They put me on a private jet, a couple of medics, and they flew me straight to Dubai. And within, obviously, mate, Dubai, as we all know, it's a pretty ritzy and fancy part of the world. Everyone thinks it's just desert and stuff, mate. It's an incredible part of the world. I love that place. And, they got some of the best doctors, and a lot of the biggest doctors and surgeons, et cetera, go through, the UAE to do their training, because obviously they've got the money, they've got the technology, they've got some of the best training in the world. So I ended up getting pushed to this hospital in Dubai, and it was a German-run hospital as well, which is obviously where a lot of the German surgeons do their training and they head back to Germany. But mate, within half an hour of landing, they got me under, a scan, X-ray and CAT scans, and I was getting every scan possible. And then, out of all things, this is an ultrasound that found it. Half an hour later, the doctor's come up and goes, "Mate, you've got 2 blood clots in your liver, and you probably only had maybe you're lucky you're here, because you'll probably be dead in a couple of days." I'm like, "Yeah, fair. Thanks, mate. Awesome. It's good timing." And within finding them, they get straight onto the blood thinners, and they start injecting the blood thinners into my blood, which kind of stemmed the pain, which is good, because as I said, mate, that pain was it's unexplainable. So I spent about 2 weeks in Dubai in hospital, and mate, I'm 116, 117 kilos. Man, I dropped down to about 80. I look like ET. Mate, it was terrible. Got home and just looked like a starving victim at home, and straight back on the mend, which is good, because it's not really an injury. It's just blood clots. Essentially my liver was just starting to shut down, because the clot was stopping the blood from filtering through the liver. So once the blood clot was, I think they're still there. I'm pretty sure they're still there, but they've just, broken away a bit. So it's not one big lump stopping the blood going through. So my recovery was quite quick. So I was back in the gym, mate. It's funny because the doctor told me not to go back to the gym, give it a few months, mate. And I was back in the gym, I was in the gym in Dubai. I couldn't wait. So I had to get back because I looked bad. So I got back to Australia, and mate, I started doing a bit more just private security again, just back in Australia, a bit of bodyguard stuff. Mate, one thing I've missed actually is, so I started touring the world with Nitro Circus as well. So I started with them in 2013, on and off. I'd go around the world with them, do a tour, and then head back to Afghanistan, head back to Iraq, etc. So in between that 1 month off, I'd go on tour with Nitro Circus and do their security and safety. And so when I got back from Afghanistan after my blood clot, I got back into touring the world with them and doing that stuff. And then I had that security company on the outside as well. So I thought, what, let's start getting back into the nightclubs, pubs and clubs. So mate, mate, we picked up a couple of pubs and clubs here in Newcastle, and then from there we just started giving the client what they wanted, exactly what you should be doing. Clients paying for it, so give them what they want, mate. We kept doing it, and mate, at this stage now we've got about 20 venues here in Newcastle with 80 guys working for me now. So it's turned into a quite a large multi-million-dollar company now. So, and I'm at the top of it, which is crazy. But mate, that's pretty much my side of things.
God, what do I ask now? It's like heaps of that's a story and a half. Are you still on the blood thinners now and stuff like that?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, so I'll be on the blood thinners for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Which is not a bad thing, I suppose. It's kind of one of those touchy things at the moment, especially with this new AstraZeneca, this COVID injection and giving people blood clots. So I'm not too sure on where I stand on taking it.
Do you have to take it?
Mate, to be honest, I might have to, because I travel the world again with Nitro Circus, and we're planning a few things over the next couple of years to get back overseas and start touring again. So, mate, if I have to have it, because they're talking about a vaccine passport for everyone if you travel overseas. So if I got to have it, then that's the risk I got to take. But I suppose it'll all depend on what the doctors say, etc. So they don't. Most of them know what they're talking about. Some don't.
Tell us about your podcast.
Yeah, mate. Yeah. So we started a podcast. It's called Zero Limits Podcast. And obviously that's who, we've been chatting with you through that. And mate, it was started only 3 months ago now. And it was me and Shane Cording. He's ex-Navy as well, done his time in the Middle East, etc. But we just got together one day and we're just like, let's, there's a lot of podcasts out there, and obviously at this stage now, we're going through this veteran suicide, and, over the last, 10 years, mate, I've lost I can't count how many of my mates have pulled the pin on life just because it's there's no support throughout the veteran side of things from the government. And it's just been a blessing now that they've just called this Royal Commission and it's been approved. So that at least that's going to bring some light on veteran mental health. So yeah, mate. So we started it was more to, because I had the reach with some of these stars. A lot of you've probably seen some of the guys we've had on. Some of these guys have got 500 million followers on the Instagrams, and they're just mates of mine. So at the end of the day, I've just been lucky enough to travel around with Nitro Circus and get a reach on some of those guys, and obviously the whole side of the military side of things as well. So we've had some crazy guys come on through the military, tell their crazy. So when you think I got crazy stories, you probably heard, Curtis McGrath the other day, telling the story, how he lost his legs. And then we interviewed my mate that saved his life, put the tourniquets on his legs. It's only stuff you see in the movies. This happened to real guys. So, yeah, mate, we started it just to, give people a bit of motivation and, a kick to, do whatever you want. Some of these guys I've had on, like myself, mate, I grew up in a 2-bedroom housing commission unit in East Brisbane. Mum and 3 boys. Mum was living on a sofa couch, so the boys could have their own room, etc. upstairs. So, and a couple of these athletes that we've had on, some of them were dirtbags growing up and in trouble with the police, etc. And no money, and now they're touring the world. Like myself, I've established quite a successful security business, multi-million-dollar security business. So. Yeah, mate, it's been real good, and we've had a lot of good feedback from not just military guys, but athletes or people who have just been down on luck, and they're like, shit, maybe I can do that, maybe I can do this, and it's been real, really rewarding in a way.
No, definitely very interesting.
Yeah.
Do you actually, because you do the bodyguard work for security work for all these stars and stuff like that, do you get many like crazy fans and all that type of thing?
Oh yeah, mate. Yeah, mate, there's been some crazy ones over the years. It's funny because there's people like Taylor Swift. They've got the connections with probably the FBI and CIA and all these crazy, but they have these crazy lists. They've got these like a profile on each person that they know that will turn up to every single show that they go to around the world. Some of these celebrities have a lot of these people, some of these crazy people, they turn into stalkers as well. So, a lot of these celebrities end up getting AVOs put, against these people because they just turn up at their house and be knocking on the door and, mate, jumping fences, jumping on the stage, etc. And mate, there's plenty of that stuff. There's, I've heard of stories where people have, hidden in the boots of taxis, or hire cars just so, they can get closer to the action. We've had it. We've had someone hide in the boot, and you can hear people in the back. What's going on here? There's someone in the boot. But yeah, mate, there's plenty of crazy fans. I guess it's some of these celebrities, they do it. They're kind of doing good for the world as well. They give people that positive energy or motivation. A lot of this music stars as well. A lot of their stuff. There's a lot of positive messaging out of it. So I kind of understand why some of these people do get into that crazy, following attitude. To follow their idol, etc. I it's funny because I've worked with a lot of A-list celebrities, a lot of rich people, and I don't get starstruck. Obviously, I'm used to it. But it's funny. Last weekend, I was with Nitro Circus, and Darren Lockyer, mighty Brisbane Bronco, turned up, and I was starstruck, mate. He's like, for me, like he's one of my, one of my guys. I've always loved him. Grew up, watching football. Love my football, and watching Darren Lockyer. And then I've met him a few times, but then the older you get, I suppose you start to realise what how much these what these people do for the communities, etc. Influence. He influenced me a fair bit. Growing up. So yeah, mate. I suppose I didn't turn into a crazy fan, but yeah, they're out there, mate. They're out there, and it's funny because I've turned up to the airport a couple of times as a bodyguard. Obviously, if you're retrieving a international client, mate, I've turned up to the to the airport, and you'll have, 200-300 fans there, and they'll come up to you. They'll pick you out of the crowd, out of everyone. I'll try and blend in, etc. You're the bodyguard, aren't you? I'm like, and mate, they'll tell you your name. They'll tell you where you live. They know everything. You can get quite freaky what they know.
Are you all like plain clothes? Or
Yeah, mate. Yeah, plain clothes, mate. Mate, if I'm doing an airport pickup, it just depends, what client you're picking up. But I'll try and blend in. And so, as I said, mate, with these celebrities, mate, they just know everything. They know the exact time they're landing. They know when they're leaving. It's just, yeah, I don't know how they do it, but yeah, they're quite yeah, they're really good. They're good at their job. They should be investigators.
yeah. Do they ever try to rush the star? Because it's only
Oh yeah,
normally only like one of you protecting the star, and then suddenly you're like surrounded by 300 fans. Be really pretty full on.
yeah, mate. It can be. I mean, majority of the jobs are one up, but there are times where for the larger celebrities, etc. You can have multiple. Four. Taylor Swift had anywhere up to 10 or 15.
Yeah.
Like almost a mini army type thing. But yeah, mate, there's times where you get mobbed and stuff. At the end of the day, you're there to just provide security for the client. Obviously, and if you feel unsafe or you think there's going to be an unsafe moment, you just get the client out of there. And I guess it's one of the big differences, leaving the military. We in the military, we hear a gunshot, we hear an explosion. Unlike anyone else, we hear it, we find out where it is, and then we run straight towards it. Whereas the bodyguard side of things, mate, you're running away from it. You hear something go bang, you hear something go, whatever, you run away from it. You get client in the car, get away. Same thing in Iraq and Afghanistan when I was on the private bodyguard stuff. Exact same thing. Rather than, yeah, we did have all the guns and stuff, but rather than running towards the fire, we'd run away from it. So, it's a different ball game.
Have you got any post-traumatic stress yourself from your time overseas, or?
Mate, to be honest, I wouldn't say I have PTSD. I know a lot of my mates do. There's a lot of them that do, and I guess one of the hardest things for me was transitioning from such a hostile environment or such training, where these guys that I train with, they're some of the best in the world. Like if you were to run into a gunfight, these are the guys you want next to you. And I guess a lot of that stuff you can't untrain yourself for. So, it's funny because I was driving through the street the other day and I saw a red bag, probably, it was a bunch of traffic, red bag in a tree line. For me, if I was in Iraq, Afghanistan, that's probably a bomb. You know what I mean? That's probably an IED. Here in Australia, it's just a plastic bag tied to a tree. And, stuff like that it's just subliminal for me. Like I see it and I go, that's not an IED, but I see it. I notice it. My situational awareness has just been boosted. And I think it's something that'll never change. Like you can't untrain yourself for something you've done for so long.
Yeah.
But I do see I call him the head geek. So he checks out my brain every couple of months, and we have a chat and talk things. Through this is all through the Department of Veteran Affairs as well, which has been good. But obviously again with this Royal Commission, it's going to make things a bit better for guys, veterans that leave the forces. Especially during that period, over the last 15 years, 15, 20 years, mate, it's been nothing but war. And losing blokes, like I'm only 37 years old, and mate, I couldn't tell you how many mates I've lost. Like not just to war, but veteran suicide, and it's not just here in Australia, mate. A lot of guys we worked with in Baghdad were Brits as well, and Brits and Americans and stuff, and a lot, we lost a few of those guys as well to suicide, which has been hectic. But yeah, mate, there's one of those things. You'd almost say that the army and that type of work, it brainwashes you. You have to, like, it's one of those jobs in the world that, nothing else can compare to it. The police can't compare to it. The fire easy ambos. Yeah, those guys see all that gore and all that type of stuff, car crashes, etc. But you're not getting into a gunfight, getting shot at, every single day, etc. Or every time, you leave the gates in Afghanistan, Iraq, you're waiting for that bang. When's it going to happen? So it's, but otherwise, mate, my mental health is, it's been pretty good. And obviously my wife, she's been, one of the rocks in my life, to pull me back down to where I am, you know, it's funny when you join the army as a young kid, you're 10 foot tall and you're literally 10 foot tall and bulletproof. And that's what they teach you. You know, you can run into anything and deal with anything and get out and, you know, you'll be fine. Whereas now, you know, obviously you get older and wiser and you start to learn. There's no respawn point like Call of Duty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I might kick back to the Nitro Circus.
Yeah, man.
Because they're all into their dirt bikes and cars and stunts and stuff like that. Did you have a go at any of the dirt bikes and tricks, and did they teach any cool stuff?
Mate, I'm 116 kilos. Some of these kids are probably, you know, the last one we just interviewed was Jared McNeil, and you know he's probably the size of a jockey. His cousin is a jockey. Is Jai McNeil won the Melbourne Cup. So a lot of these guys are pretty small. Mate, you know, the bigger guys like even Travis Pastrana is quite a big guy. You probably heard of Travis Pastrana.
Yep.
He's, you know, he's fairly tall and big, but you know, he's still skinny and, you know, lightweight. Mate, they've tried, and it's funny because, you know, at the end of the show, once everyone, all the people out of the stadium, you know, the athletes just go back to the change room, etc. And we just got to, you know, move their bikes. So I'll jump on the bikes and, you know, put them back in the containers just to, you know, be part of the crew, etc. And so, mate, that's about my extent. But I don't know if you've seen the ramps they go down.
Pretty sick.
It's yeah, man, it's hectic. And I think until you're there and you see what they do, just like, how do you do it? You know, some of these guys are busting out, you know, double backflips on just double backflip, you know, just out of nothing. You know, I'm like, how do you even do that? But yeah, mate, I don't know. I couldn't do none of that stuff no more. And my body's a bit bust now. So, see, with my blood clots, I can't really do too much. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, mate, yeah, they're incredible.
Oh, well, we're going to run out of time in a minute. What's in the future for you? Next 1 to 3 years or whatever?
Mate, I guess you're going to keep cracking on with this security company. You know, again, mate, we've turned it into something that's, you know, quite successful. You know, as I said, I've got about 80 guys that work for me now, and you know, which is, you know, fairly. It's not a small business anymore, and which sucks because the ATO love me. I guess, mate, we're going to continue working on this Zero Limits podcast as well, and we've got some incredible guests coming up. We've got a Medal of Honor recipient coming up soon, which is really going to be fun, and we're going to start doing a bit more military guys as well, and it's kind of good with the extreme athlete sports as well because they kind of have that mental, you know, issues as well. Especially they get a lot of concussions, which it adds a dimension to our Zero Limits podcast, you know, bringing those two types of injuries together, which has been good. So we're going to carry on with this Zero Limits stuff. And, mate, I've got multiple other stuff that we're working on as well. You know, I've got a tactical brand as well. So not only the security company, we've got the tactical brand that sells medical kits and all this type of stuff, you know, stuff that I'm, you know, really enjoy. But to be honest, mate, where do I see myself in about 10 years time? I couldn't tell you. Couldn't tell you. I'm one of those people that just goes with the day. Yeah, mate. Who knows? You know, it's funny because I'm just looking at my embroidery. I've got an embroidery machine here, and we're getting into a bit of. We've got a new gym brand. I love going to the gym. So the guy that I work with, he's got about 100,000 followers on Instagram through his gym side of things. So we're going to start a gym side of things. But mate, I could be anywhere. I'm one of those people that never stops and always thinking of what can I do next. And it's not about the money. It's just about self, you know, it's more satisfaction for myself, you know, keep myself busy. So yeah, mate. Yeah.
What's your technical brand and what's your gym brand? Do you want to give yourself a plug now?
Yeah, mate. Yeah. So the tactical brand, well, my security company is called Two Ravens Security. We're based out of here in Newcastle. And on that side, we've got the Two Ravens Tactical. So that's, you know, tactical side of things. If you need anything, medical kits, T-shirts, you know, anything to do with tactical side of things. And with the gym brand, that hasn't been released yet, but that's dropping soon. So, but you'll see it all through Two Ravens Tactical and Zero Limits. You'll probably see us wearing it as well. So it'll be all over Instagram.
And where's the best place for the audience to follow you on Instagram?
Yeah, mate. So you can jump on Instagram and my personal, I don't even know what my personal one is Matty M. Morris. Yep, that's for Instagram. Otherwise, you can jump on Two Ravens Security or Two Ravens Tactical, or you can jump on Zero Limits podcast.
Ah, sweet. And yeah, I've listened to a couple of his episodes and they're pretty awesome. So yeah, Zero Limits podcast, obviously on all your platforms, not yet on YouTube, but Matty told
No,
me
we're
that
working
that's
on
to
it. We're working
come.
on it. Yeah. Yeah. Bit lazy.
All good. All right. Well, we might wrap it up here. Did you have fun coming on the show?
Yeah, mate. No, awesome. Awesome to have a chat, mate. I've watched a few of yours as well, and you're getting a lot of interesting people on there, real life people, which is what I really enjoy too. Yeah, mate, it's good to, some of these people you get, there was that young girl the other week too. She was only 16, and it was really good to see, someone that young come on and speak on camera. You know what I mean? Like kids these days, they're shy and timid, etc. So it was really good. And then you had that young MMA fighter as well. So yeah, I'm going to follow his journey, I think. So I might be able to get some shirts on him, get some
Oh,
gym stuff on him. Yeah.
yeah. Tell him that. Yeah, you found him through my podcast anyway.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. And yeah, mate, enjoy your stuff. And yeah,
Ah,
awesome.
good stuff. Thank you very much. Well, yeah, that's a wrap. I'd like to thank Matty again for coming on the show, and I'd like to thank you, the listener, for listening. Please tell a friend about the podcast. Have a fantastic day. All right, bye.